Hello and welcome. Today let's talk about some of the charts we normally bring up in our webcast. I've updated them in the last day. Now today's date being December 12th, that is. So just real quick, how do we actually find these charts? Well, if you go to my X page, you're going to see that right on this post that I did in the last couple hours, you're going to see that I've highlighted here the script code. Now remember, scripts, when we talk about those are not guaranteed for accuracy or timing. And this script right here, that code, we're going to go ahead and actually put that right in the top right of the platform. Go to Setup, Open Shared Item, click, and we're just going to copy and paste that back in. That's what you saw right on my X page. Now, when I go Preview, and I now say import that, what that's going to do is it's going to pull up a couple charts. And those couple charts that we can now actually look at them individually, okay? And by the way, you could save this to your platform. Now what I want to do in this case, and by the way, let me show you what those charts look like individually and collectively. So when we pull this up, you're now going to notice that if I go to that back arrow, it'll look like this. Well, how do you bring them up individually? What are they? Let's show it. Well, how do I bring up a chart? Well, we're just going to go to one of these spots where it shows 3 lines, and we're just going to say maximize sell. All right, so that's not too bad, okay? Now, first thing you'll actually notice up at the top is we actually have a green box here that represents or tells us how many days has the 10-period moving average been green, okay? Year-to-date change up at the top, month-to-date change right there, week-to-date change, P/E ratio, dividend yield, payout ratio, and so on. So some nice kind of quick information right off the bat. Now on this chart, what you're now going to notice is when I pull this up, you're also going to see on the chart 2 different moving averages. A whole moving average, the 10-period moving average here, and the 20-period moving average there. Also on this chart, we'll also see the close above the high of the low day dots, or trade above the high of the low day dots as well. It's kind of nice if you're looking for a bounce setup. There's the bearish version of that as well if you wanted to pull that up. Now you're going to notice up at the very top, follow my cursor, very top, looks like there's a couple of charts. Well, how do we go to the next one? Well, if I go to the next one just by clicking that forward, okay, right there, we can now see that right there. And now if I zoom in on this, if you said, I like to see breakouts, well, these same chart as before, but the difference is here we can now see the breakouts. The breakouts are based upon a duration of time. If I click on the orange line, that's a breakout of 10 days. If I actually say, well, what's the blue line? That's a breakout of really 20 days. If I said, well, what's the white line? That's a breakout of 55 days, okay? So we can now visually see where those breakouts are on the chart. So purpose of actually the chart number 1, track momentum and actually trend. The purpose of actually chart number 2 is to actually see the breakouts on the chart. If the stock actually hits any of those lines, it's currently showing a breakout at that moment in time. Let's go to the next chart, okay? Now this chart really shows the combination. This chart is really the first 1 and 2 charts combined, and then it adds the lower piece, such as the white line is really showing what we call an 8-day low. So if you're getting into position or you're adjusting stops, you might want to see where those stops might be over time. Well, that's what it's showing. The white line is showing where the 8-day low is over time. Some people like to set tighter stops. The red line is really going to be, in this case, the 10-day low, okay? And some people like to visually see where that stop would be over time and where that stop potentially could be now. Now remember, you can also see what's the yellow line. The yellow line is looking at a 20-day low. Always remember that when you're setting a stop, that stop is a trigger to sell. It doesn't mean that's exactly where it's going to sell at. So it's a trigger to sell. It's a pending order, and you have to wait and see where it fills at. Okay? So that chart number 3 is really looking at trend momentum, breakouts, but it's also showing you visually where the stops could be if you like to use days lows, like many technicians do. Now this 4th chart in, what you're now going to see is it's just looking at days lows. So if you said, hey James, I have a position, example given, the investor says, I have been in a stock, example given like AU, I've been in that stock. I'm looking to raise up my stop over time. And if this white line or red line is actually increasing, the investor might say, I'm going to move up my stop. So it's visual as far as showing us, can the investor maybe consider raising their stop? So that chart number 4 just showing the day's lows. We get into the 5th chart. Now we actually get into what many investors really enjoy, which is the trend candlesticks. The color of the candles is coinciding with the type of trend we're seeing at that time. Now, if you said, James, I don't know what those are really showing, well, we can actually go up to the little test tube right there. And once we go up to the test tube, we can now go to where it breaks down right there. Click on that, and it's going to give us a breakdown as far as really, and it's going to show us that, and we can open this up. But it's going to literally show us what does those charts actually mean. What does 1 mean? Okay? What does 2 mean, and so on. Feel free to read on that. Nice layout as far as what the color of the candles is showing. And it also shows us the duration of time at the bottom that the stock is in those different types of trends. Now, the next chart is the same, but it's on the weekly chart. Notice the chart labels are not on this because the chart labels are for daily charts only. Second to last chart, what you're now going to see, and by the way, I want to go back to that. This is going to show the trend in candlesticks, but just on a weekly form. Okay? Now, this second to last chart, we had a great discussion on it yesterday. This is moving average envelopes. And the moving average, the first thing that we want to kind of do is think of home base here. That's the 10-period exponential moving average. The yellow line is the 3% above that 10-period moving average. 5% above the 10-period moving average for the red line, 7% above that 10-period moving average. On the trend trading class for December 11th, if you did not watch that class, you want to watch that, okay? And you're also going to notice that the investors, many investors will look at this chart as far as seeing a reversion to the mean. When is it potentially too high in the short term? When might it pull back, okay? And so that's the purpose of you using the envelopes. The last chart I really want to pull up here is a chart that many investors have asked about, okay? So many investors like to really see ATR on their chart, and that average to range is expressed in terms of a dollar amount. Fine. You're also going to notice that down here, the one that we added really is ATR percentage. This is looking at the ATR, not in a dollar amount, but in a percentage amount. We've talked about historically why some investors really like that, okay, because not everything is about dollar amount and like to kind of see things expressed in a percentage as well. So I put that there as well. So if you're probably now thinking, wow, this is a nice package of charts. Well, that's why we call it the package, okay? So I want you to, for example, if you say, well, where do I find this again? Go to right to my X page. You're going to see there's the code right there. You can copy and paste that right into your platform. Now, if you said to yourself, well, where can I see some of these other classes you were referencing? You can go right to youtube.com. You could search for Trader Talk Schwab Coaching Webcasts, and you can see those classes that we post on there. Join us live and also recorded. Your homework is actually to go out and practice putting these in your paper money account and reviewing some of these stocks right on these new charts that you have right in time for Christmas. So with that said, thank you so much. And also a quick reminder of today's disclosures.